So we're in Perek HaKainis, and the last din in the Mishnah on Nun Hey Amid Beis, the last din of the Mishnah on Nun Hey Amid Beis was Naflagina. If the animal fell into a garden, Vinenis, and it has Hana, Mishalemis Mashanenis. It fell in, which means it's an onus. It fell in. There's nothing you could have done about it. And it has Hana. You're going to pay Mashanenis. If it goes down normally and it does damage, then you're going to pay Masha Hazika. You're going to pay exactly what the damage is. Ketzim Mishalemis Mas Hazika. Shaman base saw ba'isa sada. We evaluate a base saw in that field. Kama hoysa yafa b'kama hoyafa. The Gemara will clarify that. Shimon Omer achla peiris gemura mishlemis peiris gemura. And whatever you ate, if they were ripened peiris, you pay for ripened peiris. And saw some sasayim. So we saw early in the Masechta what mashanenis is. You pay. No matter what you ate, you're going to pay divrei, according to one man, divrei sa'orim, the worth of sa'orim, the meis sa'orim b'zoil, a third of its price. And here we're trying to figure out mashanenis, but masha ezika. But before we get to that, the Gemara has discussed this animal falling down into what? Into this gina. So we're on Nun Zayin Amid Beis. We're about 8 lines to the bottom by the 2 dots. Naflagina venenis, Mishalemis mashanenis. It falls down. Again, this is an oinis. It's falling down by oinis. You're going to pay mashanenis. Amarav binechbata. It's speaking where it had hana, but not the hana you would think. It didn't have hana by eating. It had hana by the produce breaking its fall. Again, the animal's falling down. It's subject to damage, but it's saved by what? The fact that it's landing on soft produce. So the landing on the soft produce will go ahead and that's the hana. So you'll pay that hana. Aval achla, if the animal eats, afilu mashenenes enim shalemes, then even whatever hana it has, you don't pay for. So let's get this straight. The mazik's animal is eating the peiris of the nizik, and you're not going to pay. Why? Lemu Rav l'tamei. Let's say this is Rav going according to his reasoning. The Amar Rav. Okay, let's go back in time outside, fellas. You take your peiris, you put it in the jurisdiction of a person. You have no rishus to be there. The animal gets damaged by the peiris that you put there. Says Rav, the damage must be that the animal slipped on the peiris, because if the animal ate on the peiris, the person who put it there could have timed that your animal shouldn't have eaten. It should not have eaten it. So it's over here. It's the nizik saying you shouldn't have eaten my peiris. I had no right to be there, but you shouldn't have eaten the peiris. So the same thing over here. The mazik says to the nizik, my animal shouldn't have eaten your peiris. Which right away makes no sense. Hey, that says the Gemara. 1 second. Hachi hashta. What are you trying to pull over my eyes? What's going on over here? Rav. When does Rav say that you shouldn't have eaten hasam over there? That's hasam over there. Where you brought your peiris in without rishus, but the animal ate itself to death. So then you could say, hey, the tazik the behema got damaged by eating the fruit, the matziyamale, mari the peiris. The owner of the fruit could say, I'm not paying you. Why? He shouldn't have eaten it. He shouldn't have eaten himself to death. But over here, where the mazik is eating it, where you're damaging somebody else, the patiri l'shlume the pati from payim ki amar. Would he say that? It makes no sense. My animal falls down by accident into your rishus. Says Rav, you only pay mashanenes when it gets cushioned from the fall. But if it eats, you don't pay mashanenes. Why? It shouldn't have eaten. What do you mean? It shouldn't have eaten. My fruit is where it's supposed to be. It's not in your rishus. My food is in my rishus. You're eating my fruit in my rishus, and I'm telling you, you shouldn't have eaten. When does Rav say you shouldn't have eaten it? Is when I bring my fruit into your rishus, and your animal ate itself to death. But over here, where your animal had no right being there, and it's eating my fruit that did have a right to be there, what in the world are you telling me you shouldn't have eaten? So obviously Rav did not mean this, because it's such an obvious, simple distinction between the two, l'chari, that's not what he meant. So he must have meant something else. So Ella Amid Aleph, Ella, what did Rav mean? Loimi boy kamar. Of course you're going to have to pay mashenenis. That's the, if you eat. Loimi boy achla de mishalemis mashenenis. Of course you're going to pay if you ate. Good. You're not going to pay mashe zika because it came down there ba'oinis. But the hana you had that you don't have to feed your animal anymore, of course you're going to pay. Aval nechbeta. But if it goes and falls down and it's cushioned by the fall, ema, I might think mavriach ari minichse chaverehu. The concept of I chased a lion away from my friend, meaning I did you a favor. I did you a favor. Your animal was in sakana. I did you a favor. What did I do? My fruit went ahead and cushioned your animal from what? From being damaged. My produce saved your animal. I'm really happy that my produce saved your animal, and therefore you don't have to pay. You might think that, fellas, right? In other words, here's Rav's Chiddush. You might think that when do you pay mashenenis? Only if the animal ate. But if the animal's fall is cushioned, the nizik is happy that he saved the masik's animal from being damaged, right? Kemashmalon, you don't say that. Says the Gemara, but ve'ema mashenenis nami lemishlan kemashmalon ve'ema hachinami. Let's say in hachinami, guys, it's such a good svara. I'm so happy that my produce saved your animal, right? So why don't we say mavriach ari? He chased away an ari, that he chased it away. Says the Gemara, mavriach ari bidaitohu. When does mavriach ari work? When you do something midas. So you're megala that you wanted. So in this example, let's say you saw the guy's animal falling, and you took a mattress and you pushed it under the animal, and then boom, the animal fell on the mattress and destroyed your paris. Then we'd say mavriach ari. Why? Because I knew my paris would be destroyed, but it was my das. I did it what? With the knowledge what I was doing. Over here, I wasn't even present when the animal fell down. So therefore, you can't say the svara of I'm happy that my produce went ahead and saved your animal, because it wasn't me das. Inami, or else what? Hayla midaitahu. Inami. Mavriach hari minichse chaveroi lest pseida. When you go ahead and chase away the lion from your friend, you're not taking a loss. Yesle pseida, you have the loss of the produce. So since you go ahead and you have the loss of the produce, we don't see mavriach hari. Okay, so Rav's statement, which we clarify now, says Rav that not only do you pay even if the animal eats mashenenis, but even if the animal's fall is cushioned, you pay mashenenis. And we don't say mavriach hari that you're happy saving your friend. You might be happy. You might be, first of all, we don't say it when you don't do a midas. And second of all, we don't say it when it comes out of your pocket. When it comes out of your pocket, we don't say it. And over here, it's coming out of your pocket because your produce is destroyed by this animal falling. Now, Heiki Dami, how did it fall? Now you tell me it fell ba'oinis. How did it fall? Rav Kana Omar, shahuchlachu b'mei raglecha. It urinated and it slipped on its urine, and then the oinus happened. It fell in. Rava Omar shedachvasa chaveirasa. That another, it's walking along and another animal shoved it. Manda Omar shedachvasa chaveirasa. That's an oinus. Kol shekain shahuchlachu b'mei raglecha. Certainly slipping on its urine would be an oinus. Umanda Omar shahuchlachu b'mei raglecha. Aval dachva chaveirasa pasheya. You are pasheya. Umeshalemis mashe zika. In other words, if an animal pushed you in, you should have not been so close. You should have avoided it. You should have, right? You shouldn't have gone side by side. You should have waited and go in and back. So the fact that when you went side by side, you were pesheya, and thus the animal knocking you in, you're a pesheya. So dafka hukluku, when you slipped on the urine, rather than what, then when you push. Then I would disagree, and I would say you pay masha zika, because that's not an oinus. That's not an oinus. Amar Rav Kahana, that you pay mashenenis is only the aruga that it fell into. Aval me aruga la aruga, when the animal goes ahead and it goes from one to the other and eats, then you're going to pay mashe zika, right? Then you're going to pay mashe zika. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, afilu me aruga la aruga, vafilu kolayam kula, achetese betachs das. In other words, as long as it's there, whatever it eats, you're going to pay mashenenis. The only time you're going to pay mashe zika if the animal goes out, and then with your knowledge, it goes back in. You didn't watch it. If the Baal knows about it, watch it. So Rav Kahana is of the opinion that you're limited to where you fell, but after that, you mashe zika. And Rabbi Yochanan is more makel. He says, no, as long whatever it eats as a result of this falling, you're going to pay masha shenanis. You only pay masha zika if it went out and came back in. Don't think that it means that he went out with his knowledge and went back in with his knowledge. If it goes out bedas, even if it goes in shloi das, you're going to pay masha zika. Even if the animal goes out bedas, even if it goes back in shloi midas, you're going to pay masha zika. My timer, damalei, even the yolfa kol emes nemishnamit lahasam rata. Since it knows what the goodies, it's been there. The animal, and knows all the goodies that are in that field. Once it it's malumid ready to go back. What they tell you shouldn't feed a cat, right? Because if you feed the cat, what are you guaranteed? You feed him once, the cat's going to come back. So the same thing over here, right? Once the animal's fed, it's malumid to go back to the field. So you have to be extra diligent in watching this animal to make sure it doesn't go back to the field. Okay, the last thing of the Mishnah was you're going to pay masha zika. If it goes down, you're going to pay masha zika. Yarda kidarka. The hezika, mishalemes masha zika. If it goes down the darka and it does damage, you're going to pay masha zika. Boy Rav Yirmiyah, yada kidarka vezika, the meleda mahu. The animal's pregnant. It goes down, and you shouldn't have let it go down. And now it goes ahead. What? And an oinus happens. It's water breaks, and now it damages the crop with the liquid that had been inside the animal. Kiti boilach says the Gemara mahu. So you pesheya with the animal going ahead and eating, and you were honest that the animal sullied the crops with its liquid, right? So in other words, you were pesheya since you're the kedarka, it didn't fall down by honest. You were pesheya for allowing it to be in there. The onus is that the way the damage took place, it didn't take place in the normal way. It didn't take place al yidei achila. It took place al smei leida. Kiti boilach aliba demandiyama tchilas b'shia v'sleifa b'inus pater. My me, I mean kimin tchilas b'shia v'sleifa b'inus pater. Since you were pesheya initially, but in the onus you pater. Idilma hacha kula b'shia he. It's a b'shia here in totally. Even the act of sullying the crops with its meileda is also a b'shia. Why? The kimin the kachazi the krevelei limialei. Since it saw it was in the final month of its time to give birth. I don't know what the cycle of an animal is, depending on the animal. Some are 5 months, some are less. Then a boilachal in ture, I would say on the base you have to watch ulis tamure bigave and be careful. And in other words, that I would think that there's no onus over here. It's not the first month of pregnancy. It's time where the animal's ready to give birth. So even though it's an honest, might think it's an honest vis-a-vis it's meleda, kemashmal, and then no, I would say it's tchilasa b'shia v'sleifa b'shia, and therefore Yechayev, the Gemara says, teku, the Rambam remains shver. Yeah, the shaila whether meleda is considered an honest or not, and we remain shver. Ketza mishalemis masha zika. So we had a machloikis, right? We had a machloikis in the Mishnah. Yishom, we said Yishomin beisa ba'oisa sadeh kama hoisa yafa v'kama hi yafa. Okay, now where do we get this idea that one has to go ahead and evaluate agav a field? If you would ask me, look what it did damage to, what is this produce worth, and pay that. But it doesn't say that. It says ubir bistei acher. Ubir, you go ahead, and bir means it devours in another field, and we're learning out the evaluation has to be agav a stei acher, agav another field. And we can have a machloikis what the size of that field is. There's a base sub, but we'll see it through your machlokes exactly what that is. So now, Minoni Mili, how do you know you evaluate an agav field? Amarav Masna, the Amakra, the pasuk says ubir bistei acher, malame sheshamin al gabe soda acher. The shuma, the evaluation is relative to another field. Right? Fred the Gemara, ubir bistei acher mi boile lafuke rishus harabim. Throughout the Masechta, we've been saying Shem v'regel are only pata ubistei acher, the only pata in the field of the nizik, right? So I needed to teach me that. How can I used to teach me that the evaluation is agav that? Don't I needed to teach me that what that the din of Shem v'regel is only mishus hanizik. In kain lichter rachmanu ubir bistei chaverei. It should just say bistei chavera. Why use the word acher? Inami, say the word sodei acher, not say bistei acher. Just say the word sodei acher. My bistei acher. Sheshamin al gabe stei acher. Oh, that's okay. That's a very compelling shot. It's so compelling. So now let's go in the other direction. Maybe it's telling me that you have to evaluate, but in other words, I'm not going to go ahead and learn that bir b'stei acher. I'll only learn that you need evaluation. I got another field. But regarding the halacha of where the hezek of shem v'regel have to be, maybe it's afil b'shus rabim. Says in Cain, if it was only teaching me the din of evaluation, then it should say it by the evaluation. It should say the following: Meitav sedeu umeitav karma yishalem b'steyacher. If it shem v'regel does the damage, meitav sedeu meitav karma yishalem b'steyacher. But it doesn't say that. It says ubir b'steyacher. It says it by the hezek. It says ubir when the act of devouring the crop, the shilach es be'iroi. When it says the act of shiluach regarding the masik, it says it. Memela lamali. The kasser achmana gabe ubir shmamina tarti. We hear from here what? Two things. Shmamina tarti. We hear from him two things. Okay. So we're hearing the fact that it says it's bistei acher tells me it's agav another field, and the location of the pasuk that it says it by the masik tells me the masik has to be bistei acher. Okay. So okay, now for the rest of the daf, guys, it's basically it's an evaluation, but it's a little tedious. I'll do the best I can. It seems to be that you're going ahead and you're doing it agav a base saw. A base saw. Now, base saw can mean two things. It can mean the shetach of a base saw or an area where you can plant the base saw. Over here means an area that you can plant the base saw. According to Rashi, we're going to have two calculations. According to Rashi, we're going to have two calculations. In other words, if I would just have a base saw itself, that seems to be a very, very, very expensive. It seems to be an expensive area because the only people who could buy it is an ani, and no other, in other words, the demand for it is very small, and therefore the buy it is since there's not too many of them around, it's going to be very high. So if I would just go according to a base saw, it would be so expensive. Says Rashi, therefore, I'm going to evaluate a base saw, a base saw, agav 60 times, 60 base sawim. So I'm going to have 1/60th of 60. I'm going to have 1/60th of 60. So Art School gives the following. It goes, if you have a base saw alone, it would be 15. If you have a base saw alone, it would be 16. But 60 base saw is worth 600. So 1/60 of 600 is 10. So therefore, then the evaluation is not going to be agav 15, it's agav 10. So according to Rashi, there's two evaluations. One, 1/60th of 60, and two, and now the evaluation of that one that you figured out, agav 60, the amount from there. According to Rav Yanai, it's going to be a tarkiv. A tarkiv is a half a saw. It's going to be a half a saw, and that's going to be agav. It's going to be agav 30. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Agav 30, but he holds that 60 is 60 is a field that is you're going to hurt the nizik because it's worth very little because people can't afford it. People who could afford it, the person Beinoni can't afford it, and the person who's rich won't spend money on it. So there's not a big demand for it. So therefore, if you're going to use 60 of the base saw, says Rabbi Yanai, you're going to be hurting the nizik. So he says a field of 30. 30 seems to be that it's more popular. It's more, and therefore a half a saw of 30. It's the same thing. 1/60 is a half to 30. But it's instead of figuring out a saw, he figures out a tarkiv. A tarkiv is a half a saw. And then we have a third opinion. Chizkiah, Chizkiah says you're going to pay. What are you going to pay? You look at one thing he ate and look how much it would be. I got 60 of those things. So those are the three denominations. Okay, so let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. Heichi Shaminon, how are you going to go ahead and evaluate? Heichi Shaminon, some Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina, you don't go ahead, saw b'shishim sawim. You go ahead, you evaluate one saw and 60 saw, and then you're going to go ahead and take that saw and figure how much a ruga from that saw would be worth. Rabbi Yana Yomer, tarkiv, which is a chatzi saw, b'shishim tarkavim, with 60 halves or 30. right? Which is shloshim saw. Okay, and again, the reason he did this because he felt 60 is too cheap. In other words, you're not going to get a lot of people. You can be hurting the nizik. It's not such a evaluation. So by doing this, he's going to go ahead and increase the amount to the nizik. Chizkiah says, klach, you take a stalk that was damaged, and you take it, I got 60 klachim. So those are the three evaluations. Good. So the first two, there are two evaluations. And according to the third one, there's only one evaluation. Mesideh. Achla kavay kavayim. Let's say the animal ate a kav. A kav is one. A kav. There's 6 kav in a sa. So he's eating a kav kavayim mefuzarim in the field. Ein oimim tashlum demehem. You don't say he pays the worth of that food that can be sold in the shuk. El roin sa. You view it kiluhi aruga katana, right? And mishayin sa. You view this kav as part of one row, fellas, right? And you evaluate agav the row. What aren't you doing? You're not evaluating agav 60, 30, or agav 60, right? You're not. It doesn't fit in with Rabbi Yosef Chanina. It doesn't fit in Rabbi Yanai. It doesn't fit in with Chizkiah, because according to them, they were all doing agav shishim, each one in a different way, right? Each one was in a different way, but they all do shishim. So over here we have a brisa that seems to say that you go ahead agav the aruga without shishim. My lab b'fnei atzma. You're evaluating the aruga by itself. It says Mulai b'shishim. You're evaluating agav shishim. Tan Rabbanan. Ain't shamim. Now we're gonna have an obscure statement. Then we're gonna answer it. Tan Rabbanan. Ain't shamim kav b'fnei shemesh bichai. You don't evaluate a kav. Why? Because that's going to be that's going to cause a revach gadol. It's going to cost somebody a profit. Below base core, nor tfua of 30 sa. Base core is an area of 30 sa. If they should paigmoy, because it's going to cause a loss. My comma, what exactly that means? What do you mean you're going to cause a loss? What does it mean you're going to cause a gain? So Amra Papa Haki Kama. Ain't shamin kav. You don't evaluate a kav b'shishim kavim. You don't evaluate if the behemoth ate a kav, agav 60 kavim, b'fnei shemesh biach mazik, because the mazik is going to gain. Because if you one kav out of 60 is not too much. So you don't do that. V'loi kur b'shishim kurim, nor do you evaluate if the animal ate a core. Again, a core is 30 sa, it's 180 kavim. A tremendous difference. It's 180 kavim. He eats v'loi kur b'shishim kurim, b'fnei shepoigim mazik, because that's going to cause the mazik a big loss. So according to this, fellas, whether it was you ate a kav or you ate a core. Now, just be aware. Go back to the lashon, fellas. Tan Rabbanan ain't shaman kav base core. A core is a volume of food. Base core is the area you can plant that food. The way Rav Papa is explaining it, it ate a core, right? According to him, it ate the food. But that's not what it says. It says base core, the brisa. You're explaining the base core of a brisa, a volume of land, an area of land, and you're explaining it in an amount of fruit that he ate. Food that he ate. Maskar of Huna, high lushin, v'loy base core. V'loy kormi boile. It shouldn't say a base core, which is like a shetach of land. It should have said what? It should have said core, right? Elo amar of Huna, bar menoyach, mishmei de Rav Acha, brei de Rav Ika. What's pshat in the obscure brisa? Hachikatani. Ain't shamin kav that the animal ate. If they atzmai, if you just evaluate the food alone, the nizik's going to make too much money. V'loy kav base core, nifnei shepoigim nizik, and you don't evaluate a kav in a base core because then that's too little, and that's going to cause money. So now you have an explanation of base core of a volume of land. Ella, what do you do? B'shishim, you go ahead and you use shishim as your amount to evaluate. Okay, so the bottom line is shishim is the agav b'steyacher. We have again 3 pshatim, whether it means 60 of a saw, whether it means a half a kav, or which 60 half saw, or it means what? It means 60 of what you ate. Those are three opinions, but we stay steady with shishim, and this is Masha Zika. Ahu gavra. The cuts now, until now, fellas, we've been speaking about a niske moment where your animal damaged. It's your animal that did the achila. What about if you go ahead and damage the field? What's the din? What's the evaluation if an adam hamasik damages a field? Ahu gavra the hashpa michavre. a person went ahead and he cut down he cut down a tree of his friend. He cut down a palm tree. Also came the Reish Galusa. He came to the Reish Galusa. Amalei lididi chazili. I saw it with my own eyes. And utlasa, the Reish Galusa said to the mazik, utlasa bikina havikaime, right? And it was 30. There were 3 dekalim, and each one was worth what? A third. 100. Each one was worth mezuz. There were three dekalim there, and each one was together. They were worth 100. So each one is worth 33 and a third. Zil havle tilsa b'tilsa. Go 30. Go pay a third. In other words, he's telling them pay exactly what you damaged, not shishim. Pay exactly what you damaged. You damaged 3 trees. The whole 3 of them was worth 100 sus. You're going to pay one of them. You're going to pay 33 and a third. So Amar, the Masik said, Gabi Reish Galusa, the Doyan Dini to Parsa. I have to go to Reish Galusa, give me a Persian psak that you pay exactly what you did. Lamali. So Asta Kamei the Rav Nachman. He came in front. Rav Nachman was the son-in-law of the Reish Galusa. Amalei, Rav Nachman told him, B'shishim, go ahead and Agav, go ahead and evaluate that one tree. Agav 60 dekalim, and that's what you'll pay. Amalei Rava, Im Amru, if the Chacham said, B'niske Shishim, that's Beniske Memoinai. That's where his mom did damage. But Yom Rugabe Niske Gufoi, would they say it by what? By Niske Gufoi, that you evaluate Agav Shishim. So Rav is of the opinion, fellas, that you do not go ahead and evaluate Agav Shishim. When do we say Shishim, fellas? Is when your shor does damage, right? Your mommy does damage, your tzoin, whatever, your property does damage. When you do damage, then we're going to go according to what you damaged. That's what Rav is saying. Amalei Abayla Rava. Beniske Gufoi my daitach. What's your das Beniske Gufoi that you're not going to go ahead and evaluate by Shishim? The Tanya. Hamavkir Karmoi Shel Chaveri Smadar. Someone goes ahead and he destroys the vineyard of his friends when the payrace begin to come out. When they begin to come out, they're called Smadar. Roy and Isai, we view the Kerem. Kamahoy Yafa Koidim Lachain. How much the Kerem was worth before. Bekami Yafa Lachamikan. Bil B'Shishim like Ketani. We never mentioned Shishim, so therefore, what's your das? No, that's your das. We didn't mention Shishim over there. Good. So Atu Gabi Behema Sanami Milay Tanya Ki Gavna. By Behema, we learned the same way. No, guys, outside. Abai is telling Rava, why are you evaluating it for itself, not Shishim? Because you have a brisa over here that if you're in a vineyard, you're going to go ahead and damage the smadar. We're going to see vis-a-vis how much is the field worth before or afterwards, not Agav Shishim. So therefore, you Rabbah told this fellow that you're not going to pay Shishim. That's your das. I'm going to bring you a brisa where you have an animal doing damage, and it also doesn't mention Shishim. So what's your raya? So now, says the Gemara, by Behimasa, by Niske Mama, and also Ki Gavno, we also learned a similar case, and we didn't mention Shishim, right? The Tanya, a Behema Shekotma Nitia, it went ahead and it broke a sapling, it broke a small tree. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Goisei Gezeris Shabishalayim, those people who were Goisei Gezeris in Yerushalayim, Dayanim, that were there, that used to judge Dine Mamanis and Knossos, Adman ben Gadai, Chana HaMitzvi, Chanan ben Avshilam, right? And some people say Nachum Amadai, Gemara Ksubis, Daf Kuf Hey. Those people, what did they say? Netiya Bashnasa, if it's a Netiya that's a year old, Shtei Kesef, you pay two more Kesef. You're going to pay 2 more Kesef. Bashtei Shonim, if it's 2 years old, Arba Kesef, you're going to pay 4 more Kesef. Achla Chazis, if the animal eats straw, Shachas, Rabbi Yosef Gluli Omer, Nidon b'mishuya sheboy. You're going to go ahead, what? And you're going to evaluate it, agav, what remained. In other words, wait till the other tefua grows, and then you'll see what it's worth, because you'll see what you can sell the other tefua for. So wait, he ate something, wait till it grows, whatever you can sell the other for, that's the damage. The Chachamim Maimim, Roy and Isai, we go ahead and view the field. Kama Yafa, V'kami Yafa. We view it now, what it was worth, it wasn't worth. This is leading up to Akasha, guys. Amid Aleph. Achlas smadar, right? And the behema ate smadar. Rabbi Shua, which again is the fruit when it just comes out. Rabbi Shua, we'll view them as fully ripened grapes ready for harvest. We'll view the field as what? As how much was the vineyard worth with them and without them. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Oimem Yishum Rabbi Shimon b'medem amurim bisman she'achla lulvei gefanim v'yichud einam. When will we view it agav the field? Is we eat the shoots before they're fruit yet, and before it's just when before the fruit actually comes out, when they're just trachim. Aval achla pagim, if it eats unripened figs, or boiser, or unripened grapes, royina seikula navim moindois libatze. We'll view them on as fruit that's ready to be harvested, and they'll pay full price. Getani mia, nonetheless, what do we need this price for? The chachamim moimim royina sei kama hoisa yafa v'kama yafa. Guys, what's the kasha? Let's go. Eye contact. Abaya, you tell Rava, what's your svara when the guy ate one of the 3 palm trees? What was your svara? That by Adam Amazik, we do not say the evaluation of Shishim. We don't say it, right? We don't say it. So said Abaya, what's your source? Because your source was a person who damaged the field. A person damaged the field of grapes of his friend. You say, you see how much the field is worth before and afterwards, and you don't mention Shishim. Good. We have a case over here by the animal also damaging. So this is the case in this game Amin. The Chacham say you also go ahead and evaluate Agav the field, right? And obviously, if you're using Agav the field, what are you going to use? You're going to use the evaluation of Shishim. And it didn't mention it over here. So just like you didn't mention it over here, we didn't mention it by the brisa that dealt with the man who damages the vineyard. It is Shishim. So Rava, you're incorrect in saying that you don't go ahead and use Shishim as an evaluator. Ketani mias. This is by the animal. What do you have to conclude? B'shishim. In this brisa, it was speaking about shishim. Hachanami, the brisa that spoke about the man being mazik the vineyard, b'shishim. Right? That's also what? B'shishim. That's also speaking b'shishim. So therefore, Rava, I disagree with you. I disagree with you. Okay, Bez Hashem, and we'll continue here tomorrow. A good tavach to everybody. Let's say a kapit.